Hey there, my name's Niandra and welcome to Mercy VOD Reviews. This time I'm looking at a game from Lisa and I really enjoyed doing this one. She uses the pistol a lot and I'm a very damage boost heavy Mercy, so I wanted to look at this from a perspective that wasn't just your playstyle is bad, mine is good. Starting off, Lisa has two snipers to damage boost, which is fun. Lisa has a choice here. She can either flick her beam between both or hard pocket one of them. She chooses the former and ultimately either way is fine, but there are some things to consider. Personally, I would damage boost Ash until I saw dynamite get thrown and then be more inclined to switch between them. Enemy D.Va creeps behind and that's some good hearing. Lisa takes out the pistol and one of my overall notes for this match was to remember that you're running Mercy with Lucio, which can easily be not enough healing even if Mercy is just heal botting her heart out. Lucio has just died, so by attacking this D.Va, Lisa's team is just kind of on their own. When running Mercy with Lucio, you do have less time to pocket, so while beaming these snipers at the start was perfectly fine, Lisa keeps her camera view locked onto them and then onto D.Va, meaning the rest of the team has been out of view for quite a while now. If you were running Mercy with, say, Moira, I'd probably just brush this off, but it's a bit of a risk with Lucio, and I feel like calling out the D.Va and asking the snipers to move away was probably safer. One thing I noticed is that running double shield tanks that contest the objective with two sniper DPS that play extremely far back puts Lisa in an awkward spot quite often. For this section here, I didn't really have a solution besides trying to play in the middle or to suggest a full regroup. By attacking this baby D.Va, Lisa is pretty much writing her tanks off as dead, which like they kind of are, but in that case you would want to fall back as well. Lisa goes for a res on Orisa and sadly gets killed by Widow, who is presumably here somewhere. This might have been doable from here, which should have denied enemies line of sight. That being said, I don't actually think Lisa wanted to res here. Lucio and Ash are already dead, plus as Lisa approaches the corpse you can see Ad Ryan health dropping through the walls, meaning he's likely to die if not helped. If the res had been successful, it could well have just delayed a full regrouping. Remember, the main goal of Resurrect is to give your team a numbers advantage, and if you're still going to be down afterwards, you need to be confident in your reason for going through with it. An overall note I gave Lisa was to be careful about GAing to allies that are far away in the backline because she generally doesn't turn her camera view around during the flight, which denies her information on those behind her. This fallback to Widow is an example of what I mean. A few seconds before this, we see Ash get zapped by Winston and Lisa flies forward too. She then hovers in the air, camera view away from allies and gets zapped herself, which I assumed motivated her to fly away. From testing, Lisa would have been able to heal Ash from the ground, which would allow her to see enemy Winston and plan accordingly. To go through this footage one more time, I want you to listen out. That was the sound of enemy Winston jumping. Either he fell back to teammates on the payload or pushed up, and either way, Lisa would want her camera view facing the other direction to know which, so she could decide her next step if he had gone after her. Anyway, Lisa's team gets wiped shortly afterwards and I want to just skip ahead. As Lisa walks back from spawn, enemy D.Va very briefly flies behind her, which allies seem interested in. Lisa keeps pushing up with the pistol instead, which I think is a weird choice because if her team kills D.Va, which Mercy can help with, her team gets to push up with a numbers advantage and hopefully wipe the rest off that. Plus it's just a little dangerous to go for a pistol play when the enemy is running Bastion and Widow and your Ryan is somewhere behind you. Best case scenario, Lisa gets a pick. Worst case scenario, her team will lose as the main healer. Enemy D.Va gets demeched and she starts to pistol the Widow behind Lisa. This wasn't a bad idea, but I'd probably beam Widow here because if she dies, I'd have to spend time rezzing, which would delay me pushing up to allies on cart, who are currently surviving off Lucio's low AoE healing. Lisa is going to activate Valkyrie and sadly Reinhardt dies a few seconds into it. I think she could have used it a bit earlier because enemy Winston is ulting and can easily knock Ryan out of beam range. During ult, Mercy's beam length is doubled, so he wouldn't be able to do that without, like, I don't know, yeeting Ryan into the river or something. Plus Lucio is dead, so Mercy's the only healer there, and beam breakage upon activating Valkyrie could potentially sting. Okay, so credit where it's due, nice job on killing the Mercy. That being said, Lisa did just res, so if another ally dies while this happens, they cannot be brought back. You can definitely see enemies pushing the Reinhardt that Lisa just revived, and this play makes him dependent on Lucio, who can peel but not heal well, and holy shit, what a nice little rhyme. The red line going across the screen is the shot of an enemy Widowmaker, which indicates she has line of sight on this general area. Lisa then flies into the air and hovers with Angelic Descent. A little bit risky, and it can be worth doing a mixture of holding, tapping and letting go of the key to just move a little less predictably than simply falling slowly. To skip ahead, Lisa's been doing fine and she activates Valkyrie, which was great timing and overall pretty good. You can briefly see enemy Winston jump behind her, and since the team is still running Widow, you can make the assumption that he's going to target her, in which case you just want to keep an eye out. Roughly halfway through, Lisa takes the pistol out to target enemy Mercy, and again, she is good at hitting shots, but pushing so far up towards the end of Valkyrie is a risk because you should be using the last few seconds of ult to decide where you want to position once it's finished when the movement perks disappear. Although the kill on their Mercy was pretty sick, this leaves Lisa running parallel to the Diva Bomb, making it a lot harder to avoid than if she had been back here somewhere and seen it coming. Skipping ahead, Lisa goes for an extremely ballsy res right next to enemy Niandra, and by just some miracle he attacks Widow behind her instead of the stationary Mercy next to him. So good job, but these sort of players are gonna quickly get punished as Lisa climbs, and even now I don't think this is a play you would consistently get away with. Lisa heals Reinhardt and then flies forward. It's not the end of the world, but one thing I've mentioned in a lot of VOD reviews lately is to be cautious of flying to an ally you've already got beam on. It is super easy to do this without really thinking about it, but as Mercy you generally want to keep distance from allies, and doing this kind of conflicts with that. Plus it puts GA on cooldown without really moving you, and if that ability isn't ready when you need it, it often feels awful. Be especially careful with this if it's your Rhine and the enemy is also running Rhine, because they generally play around each other. Anyway, that got a little long, so let's go back to before Lisa activated this Valkyrie. One general guideline for Mercy's ult is to be aware of where the enemy team is beforehand to know your allies can capitalise on the extra beams. There's no one here, meaning they're even further back, which may be a point in favour of holding off because our Widow's to the side, while Roadhog and Rhine are generally short ranged. The damage boost on Soldier's ult was really nice, but could just be done with Mercy's plain staff, so unless Valkyrie was absolutely needed to dodge that Diva Bomb, I'd probably just hold off here. Personally, I somewhat try to avoid using Valkyrie when there's roughly 30 seconds left, unless we really need it. This is because I probably won't be able to get my next one ready for overtime to have in the final fight. I want to be especially cautious with this if allies use their ults around the same time as Soldier did, because we don't want to be empty for the last fight. When running Mercy with a main healer, I try to avoid using Valk for healing, but sometimes it's necessary when pairing her with like Lucio or whatever. Lisa goes for a risky res on Roadhog and sadly dies during it. I think this is a good example of when you'd probably want to prioritise those who are still alive rather than trying to bring someone back, especially when numbers look to be even. The fight just isn't looking dire enough to risk the life of the main healer. Also, Roadhog had only just died when Lisa tried to res, so she had a few seconds to work with where the enemy could get distracted, or maybe her staff could help the team secure a pick, which would lessen the pressure. Lisa respawns, and while walking back to cart, Roadhog and Soldier are fighting baby Diva. I'd probably just keep walking here because they can both self-heal and she isn't much of a threat. I feel like Lisa doesn't really want any delays in getting to the objective where her team is fighting to get enemies off the payload. Although it works out, I mainly reiterated notes from earlier with this res. Basically, be careful with plays you won't consistently get away with or where the outcome isn't worth the possible loss of Mercy. Lisa's team is going to clear attackers off the payload and nicely end the round, which, good job! During this first round, the enemy team ran Mercy Zen, so there wasn't much of a difference in the healing between them and Lisa's Mercy Lucio. In the second round, the enemy team runs Mercy Moira, which is a lot higher. That doesn't mean it's unwinnable, but you would definitely want to keep it in mind and frequently ask yourself, okay, is our healer composition still working? Lisa begins to follow Soldier for a flank, and if she were running Mercy the same way, I'd be absolutely ecstatic. With Lucio as the other support, this play is still good, but a bit more risky, and if I were to go with Soldier, I generally keep an eye on the other teammates behind me. Like, if Lisa needs to fall back to help Reinhardt, she needs to be able to do it as quick as possible. Friendly Lucio then comes to help. This means the team is split in half, but both supports are in the same group, so the other has no healing. It ends up fine, but you would want to definitely keep an eye on allies not with you in case they needed the help more. Lisa goes for some shots on Widow, which I think is fine. She then flicks her beam onto Soldier and heals him while he's full. You would definitely want to push damage boost here because he might be able to finish off that Widow with his Helix Rocket splash damage, plus the team has a good few picks. Lisa's team is nicely pushing the payload and she moves ahead for some pistol shots, which is okay because the allies nearby are generally short range. One thing to keep in mind is that using the pistol forces you to stand in front of the choke, and as Mercy I generally try not to rely on my Rhine shield because it can break quickly or it gets lifted when he fire strikes. With damage boost you can do it from the side, which gives more consistent protection. I think it would have been worth looking for our Soldier and seeing if he was pocketable as well. Lisa then walks with her back to the cart, leaving her far away. As Mercy you do generally want to avoid the objective, but you don't want to be so far back that your beam struggles to connect. I think a good idea could have been to shift from the choke to this area and use the wall or plant pots for cover. It's Reinhardt's job to contest the payload and Defender's job to wipe him off, so he's a prime target that's going to need all the help he can get, especially if Anna isn't around to keep him up. Nice res on Reinhardt. It's a little risky because Lisa's exposed to the choke and, like earlier, probably could have positioned from here instead. The other thing is Lisa waits until the res is over to turn it around, which means she leaves the area a little bit slower than if she had turned around during it. Tragically, enemy Mercy comes to the kill, but thankfully Lisa's team caps afterwards. As a general tip, when enemy Mercy starts to pistol you while ulting, usually the best thing you can do is just ignore her and stay alive, which ends up wasting her ult or just makes her fall back if she realizes she isn't making any progress. In this situation, the enemy team is actually in a better position because when their Mercy goes to fight like this, they still have Moira to heal while Lisa's team is just left with Lucio. Anyway, Lisa catches up and pushes a res. This is a little bit risky because Lisa's only just got here, so she doesn't have much information on where the enemies are or who could attack her during the res. Luckily that D.Va didn't kill her, but we don't know if she had boosters ready to boop Lisa out of range. Enemy D.Va uses ult and Lisa activates Valkyrie in return to hide from it. I don't think the team needed Valk because we've got 2 picks and Rein just shattered, but I do worry Lisa wouldn't have been able to hide without it. Like, that's what this ult comes down to for me. Rein charges as D.Va uses it, meaning he's not going to provide any protection, so Lisa would have to turn around and fly to the Widow. Lisa nicely hunts down the enemy Mercy in a brutal act of revenge. However, as the fun plays, I must point out that friendly Reinhardt is pushed up with her and he just used ult. This means he would benefit quite a bit from the extra ult charge the damage boost provides. To be fair though, he was a little bit behind, and while enemy Mercy does get a movement penalty for walking backwards like this, if she had turned around and flew back, she could have easily escaped. Lisa goes for a res on Widow and sadly Soldier dies during it. Kinda unlucky, it was hard to tell that there was a D.Va nearby. Personally, I might have left this res and helped my allies kill Genji instead here. Earlier, Lisa got a pick on their Mercy and Moira ran away, meaning this Genji has little support, so lowering the time to kill with damage boost would have given him less time to escape, something Genji is pretty good at. Plus, spawn is fairly close by and Widow has some mobility, so she should have time to come back when the enemy has to regroup. As Mercy, you generally want to avoid playing on the objective, which Lisa is doing here. Using the corner for cover was a great idea. So Lisa's current position is good, but I wonder if up here would have been better. My main concern with Lisa's current position is the more Rein pushes up this side of the payload and further ahead, the more Lisa will have to get closer to help. This area is also pretty close to the objective but has high ground and pillars you would just have to keep an eye on here. Definitely a good idea to just keep moving here instead of fighting the enemy Mercy. Lisa then uses her soldier as a super jump target and keeps her camera view focused on him while doing so. This means she's not looking allies on the payload, which is a little risky here. But yeah, my main thoughts for this ending fight were to just track friendly Reinhardt a bit more and generally be in a position where you can quickly help him if he needs it. Throughout this video, Rein managed to survive just fine with only Lucio healing, which is honestly incredible, but Lisa might not get so lucky in future. If the enemy team had put more pressure on Rein, he could have easily crumbled this game. Lisa brings the match to a close with a really nice Valkyrie. Pretty sure I gave this advice in the last VOD review, but if you hold down the ult button when it's not ready, it'll automatically be used once available, which would have been great here because Rein kinda needs every drop of healing he can get. I fucking love that Lisa ended this with another kill on the Mercy. Like, honestly, chef's kiss, you know? So yeah, my overall notes for Lisa were to be careful with flying to allies that are far away from the rest of the team, and to be careful with the pistol if the other healer is Lucio. Thank you so much for watching, feel free to check out my Patreon, and have a nice day. It's really good to be back, by the way. I'll like try and get back into regular uploading. Yeah, bye.